All right, so I finished Steven Erikson's Willful Child, which is very much a parody of Star Trek, and no, mostly just Star Trek. Specifically, Shatner's Star Trek, the original 1960s Star Trek, but there are references to some of the other ones, Next Generation, and just Star Trek in general, I believe. So I would heartily recommend this to anyone who not even if you're a Star Trek fan, just if you're a sci-fi fan overall. Not even like in book form. Preferably if you've watched TV or film sci-fi, uh, just you'll get such a kick out of this. It's very very funny. I can try and go through the plot, but even if I did go through the plot, and I'll talk about sort of the major parts of it. You have to read it because there's so many jokes. Just every other sentence is a joke of some sort that I won't be able to explain at all. But basically, the gist of it is, sometime in the distant future, aliens arrive on Earth and create an EMP pulse that wipes out a lot of our social media and technology and internet and stops us from. He uses, what was the expression he used? Staring at our navels so hard that we're looking at our anus and complaining about the smell. That is a very Erikson quote, although I might be paraphrasing. That might not be the actual. I think that is the actual quote. So yes, so this vast EMP, and then these aliens called the benefactors gave humans technology, and instead of like in Star Trek when Vulcans give us technology and we advance and become a utopian society, we of course humanity take this technology and become horrible, rapacious. Um, we just become humans. We get right back on track and start exploiting and extracting and colonizing the known galaxy. So in the prologue, when this event happens, one of these aliens leave their ship behind, and this guy Harry Mitz, which, as I say the name aloud, brings new meaning to it. Him and his robot dog Spark and his son, who are all big Star Trek fans essentially, board this ship and take it on a joyride across the galaxy. And later at the end of the book, we find that they've sort of become traitors to humanity for some reason or another, and so they exist outside of humanity, whereas humanity has developed this militaristic space exploration, basically a Starfleet that is setting out to conquer and subjugate as much as they can. So it's very episodic in nature, the book I mean, but that's the point. Like one of the characters says throughout the book, like, I feel a new episode coming on, or wow, that was a really short episode, or like, it's not self-aware, but it's kind of like the character's like, man, why do we have these weird short events that seem to be so truncated, and I mean, something happens and ends so quickly, and then we move on to something totally different. It's like very episodic. Yeah, and so we follow the voyages of the ASF Engage class starship Willful Child, captained by Captain Hadrien Allen Sawback and his hand-picked crew of attractive female bridge members. Our first glimpse of this guy, I thought, ooh, he's like a bit handsy, as we'd say, but like the sort of guy that would be cancelled nowadays. But it made me uncomfortable in a way. But you have to realize that's a parody of William Shatner's Kirk, who's very much like, he didn't meet an alien he didn't want to kiss. Anyway, so we have this guy, and he solved the Mishmashi paradox in 3 days, which is like the Kobayashi Maru, the unwinnable scenario. And the Admiralty said that it should take 3 years, and how could he do it in 3 days? And because of their stupid organization, that in order to become captain of a ship, you have to pass this test and only this test. Because he passed it, he can be a captain of a ship. So now he has this brand new ship. And the entire events of this book take place in like 2 or 3 days. Like, the crazy adventures are just like one after the other. like they're leaving space dock. Some of these people are in space for the first time, and like halfway through the book, he's like, I know we've only been in space for 18 hours, and we've like committed genocide and solved galactic threats, and et cetera, et cetera. Like even one point, the chapter starts, and then 8 seconds later, this happened. Like it's just so fast paced, which is hilarious. So you have his crew. I could describe his crew. He's got his second in command, or 2IC as he calls her. Which I like, instead of number 2, it's 2IC, second in command. Who's this? She thinks that he's like a super genius. That he's like, he seems crazy, but it's just because he's operating on another level. We can't understand him. So she's like very proper and very like on his side and follows his orders strictly. We've got the sort of the hilarious. The person at comms is sort of this airhead jock guy that was a failed Olympian. I'm not sure what that's a reference to, but he keeps getting swapped out because stuff happens and they have to send him to sick bay or whatnot, and he gets replaced by this guy Pulaski, who is Sawback's cousin, who doesn't want to be called Pulaski and had his name legally changed to Sawback, but Captain Sawback calls him Pulaski all the time, which makes me think of the Dr. Pulaski from The Next Generation when Gates McFadden was off in maternity leave. But anyways, I don't think it's a reference to that. But it's funny because they keep switching. Even like the captain looks away for a second and then looks back and they switch. So it's always a running joke of who's running comms at this second. Is it Pulaski or is it James Jimmy Eden, I think is his name. The names are hilarious, of course, because it's Erikson. Like, he has Marines, and he has names for Marines. One of them's Charles Not Chuck, sorry. Sweepy is the lieutenant. I can't remember all of them, but yeah, there's a group of Marines that are very much like, they're stereotypical, not Malazan Marines, but stereotypical Marines, like, jarhead, sort of, we'll get you out of any situation, even if it's literally impossible. Well, we're Marines, sir. We'll find a way. It's what we do, sort of thing. And then they do. And like the lieutenant, she's always smoking a cigar, and there's always a reference about this glow in her eyes. And he's like, "Oh no, wait, that's just the cigar." And there's so many jokes like that. So, anyways, their first mission, because the Admiralty hate this Captain Sawback guy, they're like, we're going to send you out to deal with these smugglers in this system. Someone's smuggling counterfeit sports jerseys. He's like, this is a job for like a basic cop, but we're sending out a freaking military warship to deal with it because we don't like you. He's like, oh, yes, the Jersey Wars. Yes, we will deal with that. And like, of course, within 5 minutes of entering the system, he has dealt with it. He's found the ship that does it. He's determined that it's an AI that's controlling it. And then this AI... takes over his ship, and then for just as an aside, one of the jerseys he finds is a Winnipeg Jets jersey. Of course it is, because it's Erikson. I assume he's a Jets fan. Maybe not. I think he lived in Winnipeg, or he's been around Winnipeg. Anyways, so this AI takes over the ship, and it genuinely seems like, oh no, this AI is a threat. How are we going to get this advanced AI out of our ship? But the AI quickly becomes just another member of the crew, and defers to the captain, and the captain, it becomes basically the computer of the ship that people talk to, and this AI just happens to have a sun stored in a pocket universe that it uses for energy, so it's got boundless energy resources. We find out later it's from the distant future, so it has all this crazy future tech. It basically turns the Willful child into kind of an invulnerable starship, which suits Hadrien Sawback's personality perfectly. He now has this, and yeah, I could go on and on. So basically, this starship says, or this AI wants to go back to where it was found to find its maker, sort of thing. So it takes them on this wild goose chase throughout the galaxy into enemy territory, and there's so many different events, and they like find so many different planets that they investigate, even though there's no reason for them to investigate them. And all of these planets look oddly like Northern California, which is hilarious. And it's almost random in a way. like it seems very random and bizarre, just the random things that pop up and happen. But I mean, it's great. That's not a critique. That's just, I mean, that's kind of, you watch Star Trek and it's just crazy things happen every week sort of thing. So in the end, they traverse all these different on their wild goose chase, and it turns out that the AI Tammy Wynette, or is it Wynette Tammy? I don't know what that name's a reference to, if it is one. But Erikson's great with names. The names he comes up for, like, what was the Susan Applet nipple bomb? It's like one of his combat specialists, I think. Anyways, so yeah, they find out that in the end the AI was leading them there to this place near the unknown sector, because that's where Harry Mitz, who turns out is the grandfather of Hadrien Sawback, is there still somehow. He's like 200 years old or whatever, because technology has advanced, prolonged his age, his life, whatever. The captain's his estranged parents have been captured by aliens, and Harry does not do ground missions because he's been sitting in this recliner drinking beer for the past 200 years. So he gets, so Captain Sawback's like, yeah, of course, I'll go save them. So he goes down and saves his parents, and then the AI decides, you know what, I'm going to stick with you, and we'll have more adventures, and we'll go off. And his parents and his grandfather are sort of outside of the system because they don't agree with the crazy politics of the rapacious exploitations of humanity. But Captain Hadrien is going to stay there because he wants to take it down from the inside. I just realized his name's Hadrien, which is a Roman emperor, and Kirk's middle name is Tiberius, which is a Roman emperor. I wonder if that's a connection that's meant to be made. There's all sorts of little things, like the Wesley Drive, the Collected, who are not the Borg. They're just a species that's about to invade the galaxy and commit mass genocide to collect body parts. And Hadrian's like, well, I could just clone you body part and send it to you. They're like, what do you mean clone? He's like, yeah, we can just like grow in vat body parts if you want them, and I can ship them to you. They're like, wait, we don't need to commit mass genocide? He's like, no, go back to your home galaxy and we'll set up like this shopping network, and you can just stay at home and not do anything and just shop online, and we'll deliver you body parts whenever you need them. They're like, oh, okay, thanks. And that prevents like a galactic-wide extinction event, just like that one conversation. So yeah, that's Willful Child. It goes on and on, just joke after joke after joke. It is hilarious. So I'm gonna read the next two next. One thing is, I think they're out of print because they are hard to get a hold of. This one's quite nice. Bantam. I am a fan of Bantam over Tor. But like the first one I got is a Bantam soft cover. I've got the second one here, which is a Tor hardback without the dust jacket because it was previously a library book. And then the third one is Tor mass market paperback. So like the three together, it's just, as a lover of books and collector of books, this is not what I like to see. But I did manage to get them. And I do like a hardcover. First printing, The Wrath of Betty. Well, I don't know who Betty is. Although the search for Spark. Spark is the dog, the robot dog that it said was lost in a wormhole or a black hole or something. So I guess he's going to have to find his grandfather's robot dog at some point. It's a pun on A Search for Spock, and this is a pun on The Wrath of Khan, of course. But anyway, so that's Willful Child, the first installment of the wacky adventures of this guy who's actually kind of a genius, but also is like not a hero to be looked up to. I don't think. The amount of psychological trauma so many members of his crew have gone through in this first book, I'm interested to see how it will carry through to the end of the third one. like the liaison to the affiliation, which is sort of a citizen non-military liaison on board the ship, who's constantly reporting Hadrien and is going to trying to get him fired and is trying to take over the ship. She becomes infected with some psychoactive alien goo, which makes her hallucinate a lot, and the only way to get past that is to be constantly inebriated. But so she has an implant that keeps her semi-sober but also semi-drunk. So but then there's like the helmsman, where they're always switching places because they've had so much psychological trauma. And then there's the engineer, who doesn't even need to be an engineer anymore because this AI is like so much more advanced and can deal with all the engineering stuff, and has extreme claustrophobia, which is ironic for someone on a ship, and is just peppered with drugs. He's so high constantly to deal with all his psychological issues. And then the helmsman, who's a complete airhead ditz of a girl who's only there because the captain really likes how she looks when she turns around to face him. And then the weapons officer, who is like from a nihilistic species, who, not that he wants death, but he doesn't care if he lives or dies, or anyone else. He's like, it's totally futile. He's like, what's the point? But he's the arms officer, the security officer. I don't know. It's hilarious. You gotta go read it. So yeah, that's Willful Child by Steven Erikson.